Alright, so not even kidding, I honestly didn't believe Wargaming was actually going to go down this path. But here we are. They've taken Yamato DNA, sprinkled in some aircraft carrier spice, and decided to call it Aki. And yes, that's not some weird typo. This thing is a full-on hybrid, meaning you've got the traits of a battleship, the armor, the guns, the tanky presence, and on top of that you get playable dive bombers, like you just borrowed them straight out of a carrier's hangar. It's kind of like Wargaming looked at the IC and said, you know what, this was fun as a meme ship at tier 6, but what if we just turned the meme dial all the way up and made it a proper endgame ship? And I'm not gonna lie, it feels like one of those design choices where you sit there and think, alright, either this is the most broken idea they've had in years, or it's gonna flop harder than your random teammate who YOLOs into a cap 2 minutes into the game. Either way, Aki is here, and we're gonna dive into what makes this ship such a wild addition to the game, how it stacks up against the other hybrids, and if it's actually worth taking seriously or just another credit-draining experiment. So you know how Wargaming sometimes has these moments where they look at the game, look at history, look at what players have been yelling about on forums for years, and then just say, yeah, screw it, let's make something completely cursed. Well, they've officially done it again. Because apparently it wasn't enough to have Yamato running around at tier X with her massive 460mm death sticks. No, they had to crank the dial all the way up and ask what if Yamato had a cousin who borrowed an aircraft carrier's toy box. And thus, we now have Aki, the shiny new Japanese tier X premium hybrid battleship, or battle carrier, if you want to sound extra fancy. Basically, it's Yamato, but with playable dive bombers strapped on like Wargaming duct taped 2 ships together and said, yep, that's balanced. Now, to be fair, Aki's design does at least make sense in the Wargaming lore rabbit hole. She's based on the idea of what if the Japanese had given Yamato the same conversion they tried on ice, you know, chopping up flight decks, slapping some planes on it, and calling it innovation. But the funny part is, instead of ending up as a total half-baked experiment like the real-life ice conversions, Aki comes across as one of those best of both worlds but also the worst of both worlds situations. On one hand, she's rocking 460mm guns, which automatically puts her in the Yamato Shikishima club of my shells can literally delete your existence with 2 citadels. But on the other hand, she's got the gimmick of carrying HE dive bombers, which basically turns her into a wannabe Louisiana. Except instead of American overcooked barbecue planes, she's launching Japanese HE confetti from the skies. Let's start with the big guns, because that's what everyone cares about. Aki has 6 460mm rifles in 2 triple turrets. And yes, before anyone says it, I know, 6 barrels doesn't look impressive when you've seen Yamato and Shikishima rolling around with 9 of those monsters. But here's the kicker. Aki's guns are tuned to be more accurate, with a sigma value of 2.1, and her reload is down to 28 seconds. So instead of Yamato's sometimes frustrating 30-second reload where you miss half your salvo because RNG decided you don't deserve happiness, Aki gives you slightly quicker punishment. The trade-off, of course, is range. Yamato can sit back at 26.6 kilometers and lob shells like Zeus tossing lightning bolts, while Aki's range caps out at 26.1, which isn't tiny but still feels like Wargaming whispering, you're not allowed to be too comfy back there. Add in the fact her turret traverse is a snail-paced 60 seconds for a 180-degree turn, and you've got a situation where yes, you're accurate, but if a destroyer sneezes on your flank, good luck swinging those turrets around in time. It's kind of like buying a Ferrari but realizing the steering wheel turns slower than your grandma's shopping cart. Now let's talk about survivability, because this is where Aki starts to feel like the kid that inherited all the bad family genes. 97,200 hit points is nothing to sneeze at. It's basically Yamato levels of beef, but then you realize her citadel is still weak. The armor is decent enough, with 32mm plating and a solid 55% torpedo protection, so she's not just instantly melting. But like every Yamato-class ship, she's got the classic cheek problem. Except Aki's forward-facing turret layout kind of helps her mitigate that, if you play bow in. The catch is, if you do try to bow tank and push, you can do it once, maybe twice, but it's very much a one-way ticket. Repair Party gives you 4 charges at a solid 486 HP per second, but if you get focused, you're not surviving long without teammates soaking some of that damage for you. So yeah, survivability is technically fine, but like Yamato and Shikishima, positioning is everything. Screw it up and you're just feeding red team highlight reels. Let's shift gears to the real gimmick, those HE dive bombers. And here's where Aki goes from Yamato Light to Louisiana's Japanese exchange student. You get a squadron of 8 planes, each carrying 2 HE bombs, and yes, you launch all 8 in one strike because apparently subtlety is not in this ship's vocabulary. The bombs hit for up to 5,500 damage each, with 41mm of pen and a 24% fire chance, which means they're tailor-made for harassing cruisers, burning battleships, and making destroyers scream when you catch them broadside in open water. But, and this is a big but, the bomb drop time is long. Like long enough that if your target sneezes, they've already dodged half your payload. Add to that the fact you only get one squadron with a restoration time of 200 seconds, and suddenly you realize you're not spamming planes like a proper carrier. You're more like that one guy who shows up late to the party, drops a fire or two, and then sits back down for the rest of the match. Still, it's a powerful tool when your guns can't reach, or when you want to farm a bit of extra damage on ships hiding behind islands. So how does Aki stack up against the other hybrids and premiums? Compared to IC, it's not even a contest. IC is a meme at tier 6 with floatplane bombers that feel like paper airplanes. Aki is an actual endgame threat. Against Louisiana, things get interesting. Louisiana's bombers are AP focused and designed for devastating strikes on broadside cruisers and battleships. Aki's planes are pure HE spam machines, with less alpha strike but more consistency in farming fires. Think of Louisiana as the punchy heavyweight, and Aki as the annoying guy poking you every 30 seconds until you rage quit. Compared to Yamato and Shikishima, it's a straight trade-off. They get raw gun power and longer range, she gets a bit more accuracy, slightly faster reload, and planes for utility. In other words, Aki is not replacing Yamato or Shikishima, but she's carving her own niche as a hybrid that can influence the map in more ways than just pointing guns. Now let's talk about the smaller details, because Wargaming always hides the pain points there. Maneuverability, Aki's rocking 27 knots of speed, which is fine until you realize her turning circle is 920 meters and her rudder shift is 18.7 seconds. Translation, if a destroyer drops torpedoes on you, start praying, because you're not dodging. Concealment, 17.6 kilometers surface detect, which is basically screaming, "Hey everyone, I'm right here, please focus me." Her AA, it exists, I guess. You've got short range at 295 DPS with 85% hit chance, mid-range at 256 DPS with 75% accuracy, and long range at 140 DPS. It's not terrible, but don't expect to be swatting planes like Haaland or Annapolis. You're a free farm for dedicated carrier players. So what's the vibe here? Honestly, Aki feels like Wargaming wanted to make a ship that's familiar but spicy. She's got the backbone of Yamato with the flavor of Louisiana, and the result is a ship that's going to polarize players. Some people will love the extra utility and flexibility, being able to punish with big guns and still influence targets hiding behind islands. Others are going to hate the compromises, like having only 6 barrels, slower turret traverse, weaker range, and planes that aren't reliable enough to carry games. It's very much a love it or hate it ship, and honestly, that's kind of refreshing. At least it's not just another Yamato clone with slightly different reload numbers slapped on. So yeah, Aki is here. She's big, she's awkward, she's got more gimmicks than your average TikTok trend, and she's probably gonna get nerfed into the ground 3 patches after release if people actually figure out how to use her properly. But for now, she's one of the more interesting premiums Wargaming has cooked up in a while, and definitely worth keeping an eye on if you're into hybrids or just want a Yamato that throws planes at people like confetti. The best way to describe Aki is that she's versatile but high maintenance. You get great firepower up front, a reload that's faster than Yamato, planes that can reach out past your gun range and farm damage, and enough armor to survive if you play her smart. But at the same time, the turret traverse is glacial. Her citadel is sketchy, and her planes aren't exactly the second coming of Midway's strike power. So while she's got tools that can make her dangerous in the right hands, she's also the kind of ship that punishes bad positioning and poor decision-making really quickly. So is she going to be the next must-have Tier X premium that completely changes the game? Honestly, no. But that's not a bad thing. Aki feels like one of those ships that's going to click with a certain group of players who love hybrids and want more variety at Tier X, while others will dismiss her as a gimmick and stick with their traditional battleships. And honestly, that's fine, because not every new ship needs to be some busted meta-defining monster. Sometimes it's enough to just bring something fresh, fun, and a little bit weird into the game. So yeah, that's Aki, the new Japanese premium battle carrier that proves Wargaming's design team is still finding new ways to surprise us. Whether she ends up in your paw or not, at least we can say she brings something different to the table, and that alone makes her worth talking about. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for this one. Let me know what you think of Aki down in the comments, if you'd run her, or if you think she's just another credit sink. Until next time, good luck fair seas, and may your bombers actually land their hits instead of scattering like they've just had too much sake.